Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass and welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about Ace Attorney. In anticipation for the collection port of the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney games, I decided to hunker down and do something I've been meaning to do for a long time now. Finally complete the original Ace Attorney trilogy. Yes, I somehow hadn't managed that until now. A deadly combination of third case syndrome and other interests interrupting it hit hard. But anyway, whenever I get on an Ace Attorney kick, the thing I am almost always guaranteed to do is revisit, in some form, my favorite case from the original trilogy, Turnabout Goodbyes. Turnabout Goodbyes, the final case of the original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney game, is widely regarded as one of the best cases in the entire series, if not the best, even this many games and cases later. The way the case and trial progresses so smoothly, the reveals adding deeper nuance and importance to practically every single character, getting the honor of being the cross-examined a parrot case, everything about it is just magnificently put together. I could gush about it for as long as you'll possibly let me. However, for this video, I want to talk a bit about one of the few areas that I've seen criticized about this case, which has to do with the presiding prosecutor, the gravely and dominating Manfred von Karma. Be warned that from this point on, I will be going into major spoilers for the original Ace Attorney game, this case specifically, and minor spoilers for the rest of the series. If you want to experience this game for yourself without me giving away how it concludes, please do, it's worth it. But please, come back once you've finished. Like every other character in this game, and especially this case, Manfred von Karma has an incredible role in Turnabout Goodbyes. With your main rival for the rest of the game, Miles Edgeworth, accused of murder and being the defendant for this case, there needs to be someone else standing behind the prosecution's bench. Manfred von Karma is not only a seasoned prosecutor who has never lost a case, but is also Edgeworth's mentor and adopted father. Manfred von Karma is an incredible final boss. He's intimidating and imposing, making even the judge quiver at his demanding insistence at how quickly the trial will be over, though to be fair, it's not really hard to frighten this judge, and the personal touch that he practically raised Miles and is now tasked with convicting him of a crime that we know he didn't commit, with little to no sympathy for his protege, only adds to how difficult this case feels. He works amazingly in that context. The complicated bit comes in when the case is finally solved. For anyone still here who doesn't care about spoilers, in the most Cliff Notes way I can break this down, Manfred von Karma is in fact the guilty party here. 15 years prior, von Karma had killed Miles' father, Gregory Edgeworth, over tarnishing his perfect court record by raising a sustained objection against him. Leaving no trace of his crime behind, the only other person who could have done it, Yanni Yogi, was arrested for the murder. He got off the hook thanks to defense attorney Robert Hammond, but the methods Hammond used to win the case ruined Yogi's life. In the present day, von Karma contacts Yogi, orchestrates it so he can kill Hammond out of revenge, and frame Edgeworth for it. Everything in Turnabout Goodbyes ties up a deep tragedy that shaped Miles Edgeworth and the person he is throughout most of the game, coming back to haunt him in the worst way imaginable. If it wasn't for Phoenix Wright taking on the case, von Karma would have gotten away with this, no question. The question I want to focus on though, when it comes to Turnabout Goodbyes and von Karma's plot in it is... why? Von Karma orchestrates all this to go down mere days before the 15th anniversary of Gregory Edgeworth's murder, or the DL-6 incident as it's called by law enforcement, which is also when the statute of limitations runs out, meaning the case can't be reopened and no one can be charged for it after that date. This murder that he committed is about to become a cold case, and would have remained so without his interference. Many fans have pointed out how unusual this seems. Manfred literally got away with cold-blooded murder. He was never remotely considered a suspect, he left no trace of evidence to link him to the act, and any potential witnesses were unconscious at the time. Even when Gregory is contacted through spirit channeling, if you're not familiar with the series, I swear that's a viable legal move in this universe, he didn't really know who killed him. He assumed like everyone else. There is no way to connect him to this case in any way, and yet he goes out of his way to put it in front of the eyes of the law again, right when it's about to be out of their hands. Why he does this is oddly a question we never really get an answer to. It's odd because Ace Attorney often takes time to elaborate on why the true culprits would commit these heinous acts, but von Karma does not get that privilege. Oh, we know why he killed Gregory. He was so insecure about the minor smudge on his record that he gave into a darker desire when given the opportunity, but why he arranges the death of Robert Hammond and frames Miles for it, that's more up to interpretation. So, Here's my interpretation. I think this confusion towards why von Karma drudged all this up again when he could have left well enough alone is mostly connected to the fact that people think judicial punishment is the only one a character can face. Or at least the only one where it feels like they're getting what they deserve. I cannot tell you how much it annoys me when people are yelling at their screens for a villain or just a character who did something bad to be arrested or locked up, and anything short of that is them getting away with it. But to me at least, that's simply not true. I think there was one court Manfred feared far more than the one he served for the last 40 years, and that is the court of public opinion. It's important to remember that in the world of Ace Attorney, prosecutors are revered. They're seen as monuments of justice, and the legal system often works in favor of convictions. Therefore, someone like Manfred von Karma is highly respected in his field and the world at large. He's everything everyone in the legal world aspires to be, including Miles and Manfred's biological daughter Franziska, both of whom become prosecuting prodigies solely based on his influence. Manfred von Karma's reputation of perfection is everything to him. So when the day came that the statute of limitations ran out on the DL-6 incident, even if he couldn't face any criminal repercussions for it if anyone connected the dots to what he did, if whoever discovered the truth could make a strong enough case to the public, he wouldn't need to be charged with a crime. Everyone would turn their backs on him, his colleagues, his admirers, and likely his own family. This sword of Damocles, forged from his own twisted insecurities, that would go on to have incalculable ripples in the original Ace Attorney trilogy. While there's no reason to believe anyone would find out the truth, the fact that they could was probably enough to make him take matters into his own hands yet again. Sure, von Karma couldn't go to prison for this anymore, but it could still ruin his reputation and soon after, his life. However, if that case was officially closed for good, if all parties involved were accounted for, and the courts, and by extension the public, were given a definitive answer to what really happened in that elevator 15 years ago, it'd be tougher to accuse him of anything. And this is where I think he began to plot the murder of Robert Hammond. Von Karma didn't necessarily have anything against Hammond personally. As far as I remember, he had no involvement in the trial of Jan Yogi, but I'm open to being corrected on that. But in the most twisted way imaginable, he was the perfect sacrificial lamb. He's the only other person who links Yogi, Edgeworth, and the DL-6 incident together. It's the ultimate showcase of how Manfred von Karma is a master manipulator, slowly but surely laying out the pieces in the shadows while everyone else is struggling to keep up and yet always looking in the wrong place. For the finishing touch, he prosecutes the case himself. That way he could see to it that the trial went exactly as he wanted. The only thing he didn't count on was having such a dedicated defense attorney as an opponent. The way he set everything up would not only remove any theories about the DL-6 incident possibly forever, but would remove anyone who would want to dig deeper into this to begin with. If Miles was convicted of Hammond's murder, Yanni Yogi would have been satisfied and left well enough alone. And even if Yogi was found out or confessed like he eventually did, I think von Karma was counting on the fact that bringing all this up again would lead to Edgeworth confessing to his father's murder himself. Miles has been plagued with nightmares ever since that day, where the fuzzy details of the events have convinced him that he was responsible for it. This is something Miles suffered with the entire time he was raised by the von Karmas, and while I'm sure he didn't say anything about it, Manfred's not stupid. I'm willing to bet he noticed and kept it in the back of his mind when plotting this whole thing out. On top of that, this plot of von Karma's happens right around the time Miles starts being challenged by Phoenix Wright, where his own perfect win record starts to falter, and where the demon prosecutor starts to show a bit more humanity and cooperation with the defense in the courtroom. And again, Manfred's smart. He probably noticed something was changing in Miles. Something much different from how he mentored him, and could be dangerous if it's looking in the wrong place. I don't ascribe the idea that von Karma molded his children to be ruthless prosecutors against their will. His own obsession with perfection aside, if you wanted to succeed in court in this world, that's how you had to be, and you have to be clever to keep it up. If he knows Miles and Franziska can meet those expectations, he'd not only encourage that, but shape them in his image. Even if that means teaching them more forceful and dubious approaches to securing a guilty verdict. They both admire admire him, just like everyone else. And in Miles' case, he feels like von Karma was the only one who was there for him after what happened. When he's first mentioned, Miles says outright that Manfred von Karma is someone who deserves respect. It's what makes the eventual reveal so earth-shattering for him, and that kind of vengeance from someone as clever and cunning as Edgeworth is exactly what I think von Karma was worried about. If he started to seek out true justice and not just victories, and looked any deeper into the case that changed his life forever, he might start to connect the dots. Thus, he needed to be disposed of. And Manfred von Karma has just what it takes to use the systems he's been working for all these years to his advantage and against his protege. In short, Manfred was afraid of the very thing he created and realized he needed to destroy it. Let's just be grateful he was unsuccessful. Now, I'm sure there are going to be those who say that people wouldn't believe that he committed murder if he's not charged with it. Well, yes, some people need that hard judicial answer to whether someone is guilty or innocent. Some people don't need as much convincing. Just look at how divisive the O.J. Simpson verdict was at the time. Or to keep it closer to the story, how quickly everyone turned on Edgeworth after he was arrested. People are very willing to make up their minds on their own right away, and once they do, it's tough to get them to come back around if that view is even remotely tarnished. This is especially the case in Ace Attorney, where justice is cruel, swift, sometimes downright corrupt, and very much guilty until proven innocent. In a way, Phoenix facing off against Manfred von Karma, a highly respected individual who represents everything Phoenix has tried to fight against, is the ultimate case in the series of the reverse. Innocent until proven guilty. Phoenix is the underdog of the game because there's much more working against the defense attorney in court than the prosecution. Any injustice you see through these cases is because you're seeing it through the eyes of someone whose job it is to stand up for the falsely accused and against those in power who try to slip back into the shadows without consequence. After all, every true culprit in the original Phoenix Wright game are people in high positions of power and influence. Phoenix is the shining light in the court system, where the truth is easier to see and those lurking in the shadows find it tougher to hide. To be clear, I don't want anyone to get the idea from this video that I feel like Manfred von Karma was worth sympathy or a chance to have his side of the story heard. He killed 2 innocent people, orphaned and traumatized a child who he then brought up in his image, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg. He got everything that was coming to him in the glorious blaze this case goes out on. However, I feel like digging around for nuance or trying to understand despicable characters is often confused with trying to justify their actions. And again, that's simply not true. I feel it's important to understand the unredeemable, not just to find those warning signs in our own actions, but to see how much they differ from the heroes. In fact, I think analyzing the motives behind Manfred von Karma's actions in Turnabout Goodbyes is crucial to understanding his lack of development, why he never changes, and what he really was all this time. At first, von Karma is presented as a strong, imposing presence who can get the verdict he wants with a stomp of his cane. But, like in most Ace Attorney cases, the more you start digging, and the more the web of lies the true culprit worked to weave become undone, the more you see people for who they really are. A prestigious record like von Karma's also comes with an increasing paranoia of insecurity. The mere idea of this murder he committed out of impulsive revenge getting out was enough for him to essentially commit the same act again if it meant no one would find out. If you aren't perfect, then what are you? There is a sort of crisis of faith that occurs in a lot of us when someone powerful and respected is revealed to have been abusing their power and influence silently behind the scenes. Realizing that about someone you might admire and owe for shaping a lot of your values can force you to question just how many of those values are valid and how to move on and grow after such a shock. This happens on an incredibly personal level with Miles and Franziska. All these values that made Manfred into the person he is, he instilled into his kids. With this reveal of who Manfred von Karma really is, they are forced to re-examine who exactly they are in and out of the courtroom. Focusing on Miles specifically, after all this happens, he spends a long time recontextualizing his relationship with the law and the role he plays in enforcing it. Not just the lives he ruined himself as the demon prosecutor, but having to reevaluate all of his beliefs after the events that shaped them were finally made clear. It's a tough journey, but it's one he eventually comes to a resolution on. How can he fight for the law with a clean conscience? Well, it's by fighting not for convictions or a self-aggrandizing sense of imposing justice, but actually
the truth. I'll fight for it with all I have. It's that simple.
That's what truly matters. That, at the end of the day, is the mantra of the Ace Attorney franchise, uncovering the truth no matter what it means for you. And that is something his mentor never did and never will understand. While those scars von Karma created never truly heal, and while Miles could never really stand on the side of the defense, except for that one time, he can take the good and bad of his past and shape himself into the best representative for justice he can be. Manfred von Karma will always leave an influence on Miles Edgeworth, but what will make him a better prosecutor, a better man than he ever was, is that now he's not the only influence. To understand Manfred von Karma's motives, or at least try to interpret them, is to understand those of our heroes as well. Why characters like Wright and Edgeworth are essential, so that those like von Karma, who think they are infallible, are reminded that in an ideal world, no one is above facing justice and having the truth come to light.
It wasn't the bullet that wounded you. It was truth!
Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you think of this topic in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Chelsea A. Crandall, David L. Sproul, Jinx Productions, and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.